Well, it's Wednesday, and you all know what that means. If you probably know, we are now in WrestleMania week. However, first things first, we're going to be reviewing, of course, WWE Evolve, featuring many matches. As you probably know, Gallus will take on Jack Cartwheel, Cappuccino Jones, and Jordan Oasis, someone that, of course, that the Gallus had dealt with in the past. And then, of course, the main event features a fatal four-way match to determine who will be the face of the women's division in Evolve. That's going to be something we're going to be witnessing. And then finally, as you know, we have AEW Dynamite. We continue with more matches of the Owen Hart Cup Tournament. Mercedes Moné versus Athena, who will go to the finals. And then, of course, we have Konosuke Takeshita versus Will Ospreay, also who will be going to the finals. Hangman Page goes into his first match in the first round, taking on the wild card. And then finally, the main event features the AEW World Trios Championship on the line. The Death Riders will defend their belts against the Ops. But however, certain circumstances have changed from both sides, and we're going to be talking about that. And as always, we'll be capping up our episode with some news updates on what's been going on in the world of wrestling, such as what events the promotions are thrown out, who's booked, what matches are set, and including, of course, updates on the upcoming WWE ID Championship Tournament and some developments that have been happening in the world of wrestling as we speak. So, let's get ready for another episode of the Deleted Wrestle Zone.
Are you ready? Get up, get up! 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 Get up, get up!
Hey everyone, welcome to the Deleted Wrestle Zone, all things that is pro wrestling with AEW, NXT, New Japan Pro Wrestling, TNA, the National Wrestling Alliance, various promotions, wrestlers, matches, and championships. I am your host, J-Rod here. So, if you are new to the channel, welcome. This is a channel we do a lot of pro wrestling reviews from various promotions, not only here in the United States, also in Japan, Mexico, Canada, Europe, the UK, anywhere in the world pro wrestling is not as big, but it continues to grow. We also, of course, do discussion videos, talk about various topics such as the wrestlers themselves, the promotions, factions, storylines, whatever we want to talk about. We also, of course, do more news updates. If certain information was unable to be on this episode, we can either put it on the next one or on a separate video by itself. We also, of course, got real-timing news updates to keep you guys on alert if something has happened in the world of wrestling that needs to be addressed ASAP. We also, of course, got the Unagi Sayaka Watch and various other cool wrestling content as well. So if you like what you see, please subscribe to us, so click on that subscribe button. You'll be getting a lot of daily reviews and other cool wrestling content as well. But if you like this episode, please give us a like on the like button or a nice comment in the description down below. Now, enough with the pleasantries, let's get started. So let's begin with WWE Evolve. Okay, so we opened up with interviews. Now, much of the interviews are with the ladies involved in the Fatal 4-Way match to determine who will be the face of the women's division in WWE Evolve. We have, of course, Kendall Gray, Brinley Reese, Chantel Monroe, and Callie Armstrong. So we've been seeing all of their interviews throughout the entire talk about their backgrounds, what they're bringing to the table into the women's division in Evolve, that sort of thing. But the real question is, who will be the face? That's the common question I think many people want to see. I mean, we can see some great things about these four ladies, but we'll just get to that at some point. Now, our first match, we have Trail London taking on Harlem Lewis. Now, if many of you who know this, Harlem Lewis got away with a good win against Joe Coffey, a man, of course, who is all about beating people and proving his point. However, nothing is different. While this match was happening, in the VIP section, of course, Ice Williams was watching from a distance. But however, in this match, many of you think how this was going to turn out. I mean, Trill London is in fact a very athletic wrestler, very has like a bit of innovation as a high flyer, but however, when it comes to Harlem Lewis, he has much of a brute strength. So he applied what they call the um, boom slang, or better known as the jackhammer, and just like that, 1, 2, 3 is over. However, of course, in the post-match comments, he was giving his thing to Chewy Martinez, but however, the Gallows Boys showed up. As you know, Joe Coffey hasn't forgotten the humiliation he suffered in Harlem Lewis. I'm sure he's going to right that wrong one way or the other. But however, they have to focus their shift. Both Wolfgang, Joe Coffey, and his brother Mark, they have to deal with Jack Cartwheel, Cappuccini Jones, and Jordan Oasis. Now, for those who don't know, recently, and about a while ago, Jordan Oasis was in a match against Joe Coffey. But however, that match ended with a knockout thanks to uh, Joe Coffey, thanks to Wolfgang getting involved in some capacity to ensure nothing goes out of place. But this time, of course, Jordan Oasis would love nothing more to get even with Joe Coffey for what happened last time. But unfortunately, it did not go according to plan because he was the one who ended up in the Belfast Lariat by Joe Coffey. And just like that, 1, 2, 3, it was over. Now, during the VIP section, we did see Ice Williams, who was enjoying himself, but later he was joined by none other than the consularity of the D'Angelo family, Luca Crucifino. So you probably can guess how this was going to go. Now, our next match, we have Oro Mensa versus Javier Bernal. Now, Javier Bernal has not been in a good state as we speak, possibly been losing many of his matches. Oro Mensa has picked up wins in here and there, but however, how will be any different? I mean, we have seen some great moments from both these men, but however, Javier Bernal came up short thanks to the heel kick from Oro Mensa that he's been known to use throughout his entirety of in his wrestling career in WWE, was the fatal finish, and just like that, he's lost. But what does this mean for Javier Bernal? Well, we'll just have to wait and see from there. Now, Stevie Turner gave some great news updates regarding for next week, resulting of what happened the week before. She announced that Bryce Donovan will be in action to take on Timothy Thatcher, while of course Jackson Drake will be in action to take on Sean Legacy. However, Carly Bright, who was out of action for quite some time, will be making her return. But however, in the VIP section, we did see Carly Bright serving as a cheerleader for Kendall Gray. Now, when Kendall Gray showed up, of course, we did not. She seems like she to ignore her in some capacity. I feel like maybe Kendall Gray and Carly Bright may break up in some capacity because we did have the main event featuring Brindley Reese, Chantel Monroe, Kendall Gray, and Carly Armstrong. Great moments of this match. But one thing that was really surprising is Carly Bright was attempting to cut corners, and this could have cost her the match, but unfortunately it was Carly Armstrong who was able to pick up the win with a very huge power slam on Chantel Monroe, and just like that, 1, 2, 3, it's over. She has now declared herself as the face of the women's division in Carly Armstrong. But the real question is, who will be the ones to take it off of her? That's a very good question that we have to witness. So we'll see what happens next week. But as of right now, we are done with WWE Evolve. Let's move on with AEW Dynamite. AEW Dynamite. We opened up with the women's Owen Hart Tournament semifinals. Mercedes Moné versus Athena, which is a match I think many of us were probably dying to see. I'm sure this is one of those matches where I think many of us probably would want to see, even when these two ladies were back in WWE. But however, we get to see that. Now, this is a match where it's like more of a champion versus champion type, but both the titles that they have in their possession are not on the line. This was a opportunity. Whoever will go to All In to face Toni Storm for the AEW Women's title and All In. But the real question, who will walk out? Now, of course, you would think Athena would do whatever it takes, try to put a lot of hurt into Mercedes Moné. Mercedes Moné probably would have done the same thing. But however, Mercedes Moné was able to pick up the victory when she applied a somewhat of an O'Connor roll onto Athena, and just like that, losing. This is probably one of the biggest losses that Athena has to suffer. But the real question now is who will be her opponent in the finals? Well, that's something we'll probably have to find out in Collision or possibly next week. But however, during the post match, Tony Storm showed up. I think there is the possibility. I've been talking to certain friends in on social media that I know of, and I asked a prediction. Most people say they believe maybe Mercedes Moné could be the winner of the Owen Hart tournament. But however, we will see what happens. So let's just hold on. But who do you guys will want to see? Now remember, we still have Chris Statlander versus what's her name, Jamie Hayter. So that's something we will see down the road. Now we did see an interview with Hangman Page. As you know, he's preparing for his match. He hasn't had his singles match for the Owen Hart tournament, but he faces against a wild card. So the problem was, how do you prepare for that? While he was about to talk, he had a surprise visit from his old pals, the Bucks, and of course Kazuchika Okada. Now, of course, the Bucks were trying to say, they did this for him and all that. Hopefully, we can all be friends. However, Okada, with his usual smirking way, tells him smile, and then he called him bitch. Then Hangman got in his face, and Okada probably feels like, oh, I shouldn't have said that, but well, he should have just kept his mouth shut. However, let's jump into that match. Hangman Page versus the Wild Card. This is the first opening round of the men's tournament involving Hangman. Well, the real question is, who was in fact the wild card? Well, it turned out it was Josh Alexander, the walking weapon. Now, there were rumors and speculations and talk throughout the wrestling world that there was a possibility he was AEW bound. Well, it was not, of course, exaggerating. It really did happen. But the real question, how this was going to be. Now, we know Josh Alexander is a very fantastic wrestler. He is a very technical wrestler for what he can do. But the real question is, can Hangman Page try to put him down? Well, he did that when he, instead of using his usual arsenal in his repertoire, he used an inside cradle, which was a basic move that allowed him to pick up the win. However, many of you may know this, his opponent that he will face in the semifinals will be none other than the Proto Star, or the Proto Idiot, Kyle Fletcher. However, of course, Don Callis was there. You know Don Callis will love nothing more to destroy Hangman Page, to ensure Kyle Fletcher gets involved. And I wouldn't be surprised if the Bucks help Hangman Page. And I'm sure Don Callis will be shitting on his pants, questioning why would they get involved. Well, too bad. That's how it goes. But we'll see. Now, Nick Wayne, as you know, he is now participating in the upcoming Best of the Super Juniors in Japan. However, he was about to give his state. He was interrupted by none other than Daddy himself, the moron, Christian Cage. Now, Nick Wayne, in the other hand, was about to give his reasons why did he decided to execute his plan early instead. Well, according to what Nick believes, he said, you just couldn't stand to see your old pal Cope win the AEW World title before you do. Christian Cage thought it was funny coming from him, but he felt like, you don't know exactly what you're talking about. Now, it's still no explanation why he did it, but however, Christian Cage said that he was the man behind Nick's adventure, of course, him participating in the Best of the Super Juniors, and of course his match against Commander. So basically, he wants him to learn some things. But however, he's giving Nick Wayne to do things on his own. So we'll see how things will grow from there. Now, our next match, we have the AEW World Tag Team titles. The Gates of Agony, Tail Leona, and Bishop Khan take on the Hurt Syndicate, Bobby Lashley and Shelton Benjamin. Of course, this was going to be a brute match no matter what, because we know the Hurt Syndicate likes to hurt people. Well, we know that the Gates of Agony like to inflict hurt, because that's what they've been known for. Many of you who may not know this, when I saw them in Ring of Honor, they were in fact, as you probably know, they actually were being beaten down by Bad Dude Tito and Chi Carrero, and they actually walked out as the winners. But the real question you ask, can they pull that same kind of maneuver? Well, unfortunately, that did not do any good for them, because it was in fact a great combination between both Shelton Benjamin and Lashley, with the spear onto Bishop Khan, and just like that, it was over. However, during the post-match, MJF showed up to give a little celebration moment for the Hurt Syndicate. Now, of course, many of you know this. Bobby Lashley was not too, of course, keen on having him around. So while they were in the back, MVP was trying to reason with him, tell him, look, I know you don't like it, but let me tell you this. Let's give him a chance. But if he goes things out of line, we hurt him. So Bobby Lashley's like saying, for real? You really think we should do that? So basically, as they are stating, let's give him a chance. And if he doesn't play by the rules, we'll hurt him some more. So of course, Lashley will definitely think about that. I'm sure, what's his name? The MVP is a man of his word to ensure things will go that far. Now, let's jump into the men's Owen Hart Tournament with the semifinals. We have Will Ospreay and Konosuke Takeshita, a rematch from you guys. If you guys recall or not, it was Konosuke Takeshita who defeated Will Ospreay for the AEW International Championship. But the real question is, does lightning strike twice? Will Konosuke Takeshita once again prove his point towards Will Ospreay? You probably would think so, to ensure that he will jump in. Now, that idiot snake of a grass, Don Callis, believes that Konosuke Takeshita would win. But Will Ospreay has proven time and time again what he can do. And of course, he is determined to win this tournament, to make it all the way to All In. And the way he did that is when he applied, of course, the Stormbreaker. And just like that, 1, 2, 3, it was over. However, I want to put this on note for everybody so you guys can hear it. Remember, I mentioned many of my friends predict Mercedes Moné could win the tournament. Well, the same friends who I talked to, well, they mentioned it's Will Ospreay who most likely could win the Owen Hart Tournament. But however, I like to hear from you guys' point of view. Do you agree? Do you think that Will Ospreay will win the tournament? If not, leave a comment down below and tell me who do you guys would win, because that's going to be one thing we're going to be paying attention. Now, our main event is for the AEW World Trios titles. The Death Riders, Wheeler Yuta and Claudio Castagnoli, and Jon Moxley, who stepped up for Pac, who was injured, decided to come in. However, the opponents are the Ops, consisting of Katsuyori Shibata and Samoa Joe. But unfortunately, Hook was injured last week after what the Death Riders did to him. And of course, Taz was not present during commentary time. But the real question is, will the Ops enter this match in a 4-on-2 scenario? Because you probably ask yourself, who's number 4? Did you guys forget Marina Shafir was right there? Well, that was the case. But however, it seems that Samoa Joe had something in mind. Apparently, he brought in someone who, of course, the Death Riders have dealt in the past. And that is none other than Powerhouse Hobbs. And of course, things went chaotic at some point. Now, Jon Moxley was attempting to ensure that they do not lose these titles one way or the other, either by pure luck or try to disqualify themselves. So Moxley attempting to use the chair on Joe, but luckily Willow Nightingale, who hasn't forgotten what Jon Moxley did to her, decided to get involved. So that kind of played out pretty well. But however, of course, as you know, the Young Bucks even showed up to try to offer a peace offering to Jon Moxley. But however, the Bucks were taken out by Swerve. As you know, he mentioned a week ago, it's now buck hunting season, so it has begun, and he took both of them out. However, we did see Marina Shafir try to get involved on many occasions, but Willow Nightingale took her out. But then we see Samoa Joe with the Kato clutch onto Moxley, and just like that, 1, 2, 3, brand new champions, Samoa Joe, Katsuyori Shibata, and of course Powerhouse Hobbs. And just like that, the Death Riders were dethroned. And of course, we did see people coming out to celebrate the fact that finally someone put them in the place. But the real question we ask ourselves, should Jon Moxley be worried that now that things have changed? Well, we know that he will not allow whoever will challenge him for the AEW World title. But we'll see how that rolls. But as of right now, we'll wait until then. But tomorrow, as you probably guessed, we will have Collision. And it's going to be a day early. It will not be on Saturday, just to keep you guys on note on that. But as of right now, let's end things here with our reviews and move on with our last and final thing, news updates. Okay, so welcome to our news update. So let's begin with upcoming events. Now, many of you may know this promotion from Japan, Pro Wrestling 01. Well, it's been announced for their upcoming show on the 27th of April. Apparently, there is a character that will be brought back from the dead, but played by someone else. And this one is, of course, Hayabusa. Many of you remember him from that documentary with in Dark Side of the Ring with M M FMW, which is of course Atsushi Onida's promotion. Well, it seems now someone else is taking up the mantle. Rumor has it now, the story goes out that Hayabusa's brother and possibly his daughter did something to ensure that this legacy continues. So I can't wait to see who this new Hayabusa will be. Now, Canadian promotion Maple Leaf Pro Wrestling with their Northern Rising event on May 10th, they announced another name that will participate in the 20-man championship tournament, El Reverso. The Crash, the promotion based out of Tijuana, Mexico, right across from us, announced that Galeno de Mal will be participating in their upcoming event on the 16th of May. And then finally, it was announced on AEW, I thought I should put it on this one, that AEW will be making their debut in Mexico for Grand Slam Mexico on June 18th in the Arena Mexico. So I think this is something that's been talked about. Many of you may ask yourself, Arena Mexico, that is of course where CML has done majority of their events, and I'm so happy for them that they got the chance. I'm sure Rocky Romero has pulled every string as possible to allow many of their talents. I wouldn't be surprised if some of the CML talents even participate. Now for some updates revolving, of course, the WWE Championship Tournament. As you know, we have the two events. Now the second one on the 18th of February in FSW for Future Stars Wrestling. It was announced for the opening round. We have Sean Legacy versus Drake Jackson. Now for our recent development, many of you have been hearing what's been going on in Stardom, with specifically with Hanan. As you know, there's been things that Hana has been speaking about recently about the situation with stars, and this is what she said. Let me pull it out for all of you so you guys can get a clear idea what she said. Yeah, here it is. This is what she said. First of all, I want to make it a unit that newcomers want to join. Ida Chan and I went out to eat with some of the trainees the other day, and we asked everyone what unit they wanted to join. No mention of stars. That's why I want to improve relationship, create an environment where the younger members can easily voice their opinions. I want stars to become something like parents of stardom and lead the organization from the center. So while it's fine to think about individual goals first, I want to strengthen our unity so that we can prioritize the unit over the tag team. And that the only way to understand each other is to go up against each other in the championship match. So basically, they're voicing their opinion. As you know, Hana and Ida are a different type of generation. As you know, Azuki and Koguma debuted around the same time. They were part of the same class together. So basically, you can see that kind of thing. But the real question is, what's going to happen when things go down the drain for them, coming up for their match, of course, on the 27th. We'll see. So I think that's pretty much it what we have for our news updates and everything else. Let's call it a day. Well, I hope everybody enjoys this episode coming up. As I mentioned before, we do have Collision coming up with Spring something, and it's going to be a lot of fun to watch. We do have, of course, TNA with Unbreakable. Hopefully I get the chance to see it, and Ring of Honor as well. Now, as you know, WrestleMania week has begun. I may not do a lot of the shows that we normally do. I'm behind, of course, on Tokyo Show Pro Wrestling. I'm behind some events with All Japan and various others. So I'll do the best I can to catch up as possible, which right now is way, way, way too much for me. I mean, I'm a one-man army machine here, but let's just see. But as of right now, we are done. So until then, I will see you guys in the next DWZ time. Same DWZ channel. I must bid all of you adieu. So, goodbye. And have a nice day. Bang.